April 30th, 1945. Deep inside a concrete bunker beneath a collapsing city, Adolf Hitler, once the most powerful man in Europe, sat in silence. Outside, Soviet artillery shook the ground. Inside, the Führer made his final decision. Within minutes, the man who had promised a 1,000-year Reich was dead by his own hand. But how did Germany fall under his spell? And how did one man's ambition and hatred drag the world into its bloodiest war? Stay with us as we uncover the rise and fall of Adolf Hitler. Before we dive deeper, remember to like this video, subscribe for more untold stories of history, and let us know in the comments. What lesson should the world never forget from the rise of Hitler? Germany in 1919 was a nation on its knees. Defeated in World War I, its empire dismantled, its economy strangled by the Treaty of Versailles. Reparations drained its wealth, unemployment soared, and political violence filled the streets. In this climate of despair, Adolf Hitler, an Austrian-born war veteran, found his stage. Once a failed artist rejected by Vienna's academies, Hitler discovered his talent not in painting, but in speaking. His fiery words could electrify crowds. He joined a small nationalist group, the German Workers' Party. Soon he transformed it into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis. Hitler's message was simple yet poisonous. Germany's defeat was no accident. He blamed Jews, communists, and foreign powers for the nation's suffering. This scapegoating would become the foundation of his rise. Hitler promised revival, strength, and unity. His ideology fused ultranationalism, racial supremacy, and anti-Semitism. He declared Germans the master race destined to rule, while Jews were painted as enemies of the nation. In 1923, emboldened by his growing following, Hitler attempted a coup in Munich, the Beer Hall Putsch. It failed, and Hitler was imprisoned. But prison gave him time to write Mein Kampf, My Struggle, a book outlining his vision of conquest and racial purity. The world ignored it, but inside those pages lay the blueprint for catastrophe. When the Great Depression hit in 1929, millions of Germans lost jobs and savings. Desperation opened the door for extremism. By 1933, Hitler was appointed chancellor. Within months, he outlawed opposition parties, silenced critics, and turned democracy into dictatorship. The Third Reich was born. Hitler wasted no time in preparing Germany for war. He defied the Treaty of Versailles by rearming, expanding the military, and building a fearsome air force, the Luftwaffe. He annexed Austria in 1938, welcomed by cheering crowds in Vienna. Months later, he demanded the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia. The world's leaders, desperate to avoid war, gave in at the Munich Agreement. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain declared, "Peace for our time." But peace was already dead. On September 1st, 1939, German forces stormed into Poland. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war. World War II had begun. Hitler unleashed a new kind of warfare, blitzkrieg, lightning war. Using fast-moving tanks, aircraft, and infantry, Germany crushed Poland in weeks, then turned west. In 1940, Nazi forces invaded France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Paris fell in just 6 weeks. Only Britain stood defiant. Hitler launched the Battle of Britain, sending bombers across the English Channel. The skies burned, but Britain endured. For the first time, Hitler was stopped, yet his ambition grew. In 1941, he turned east, launching Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in history against the Soviet Union. Millions of soldiers marched into Russia, believing victory was certain. But the vast distances, the brutal winter, and fierce Soviet resistance would bleed the German army dry. Conquest was only part of Hitler's plan. The other was extermination. The Holocaust, the systematic murder of 6 million Jews and millions of others, was the darkest chapter of the Third Reich. Ghettos were sealed, families torn apart, and victims sent to concentration and extermination camps. Gas chambers and crematoria turned genocide into an industrial process. Hitler's obsession with racial purity left scars that history will never heal. To this day, the Holocaust remains humanity's most chilling warning of what hate and dehumanization can unleash. By 1943, the tide had turned. Germany suffered crushing defeats at Stalingrad and in North Africa. In 1944, the Allies landed in Normandy on D-Day, while the Soviets pushed from the east. Hitler's empire crumbled city by city. By April 1945, Berlin was surrounded. Inside his bunker, Hitler clung to illusions of victory, refusing to surrender. On April 30th, with Soviet troops only streets away, Adolf Hitler shot himself. His dream of a 1,000-year Reich ended after just 12 years. Days later, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over. The story of Adolf Hitler is not just about one man's rise and fall. It is about how despair, propaganda, and blind obedience can destroy nations. The ruins of the Third Reich remind us, democracy is fragile, hate is deadly, and history must never be forgotten. What lesson do you believe the world should carry forward from this dark chapter? Share your thoughts below. And if you want more powerful stories from history, don't forget to subscribe and stay with us for the next journey into the past. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your thoughts. What lessons should the world never forget from the era of Hitler and the Third Reich?